This is a clip from the Red Cow Arcade podcast.
Better Call Saul. Saul gone.
Not just the end of Better Call Saul, the end of the whole enchilada.
It felt like a fitting resolution to a lot of things in Breaking Bad as well. So
when last we spoke, we hadn't seen the episode where Kim. Yeah, spoilers. I heard somebody got spoiled last time we talked about this. So God damn it, don't listen to this if you want to watch Better Call Saul someday, or if you haven't watched Breaking Bad. So we're going to talk about all of it. I want to say that Carol Burnett was amazing in these final episodes.
I know. It's like you don't cast Carol Burnett for just like a cameo. They had a really good, juicy role for her.
She's just always been so good. She's so funny. She's so inventive. She has like a really unique physicality about her. Not to mention she's very famous for sketch comedy, as is Bob Odenkirk. So you get these sketch comedians doing these dramatic scenes together. Yeah. Just kind of ironic. But there was I found like I thought it was really good writing to be like, let's take this guy who used to do, legal aid for the elderly, and let's have him just manipulate the hell out of an elderly woman. And let's have that be his, kind of the impetus of his downfall. It just makes sense, because that's kind of the greatest crime of Jimmy McGill, in my opinion, is exploiting people's trust. It's different than Walt. Walt is like just he just hails destruction. This guy, he's empowered by the fact that he's going to die. But Jimmy, it's that he's a liar. That's the worst thing of all.
Yeah. And he's willing to exploit people and to, and really harm them but with his actions, and just move on, be like, oh, I got through that. And then he can move on. Yeah. And he does that forever. But yeah, it's just like little things in this show where they set up the like Ethernet cable, like
they set up
there's
the
little
Ethernet
things.
Cable. Incredible.
Yeah, they set up the Ethernet cable that he like rips out and tries to threaten her with, and just like a lot of things like the lesser shows wouldn't even bother.
I'm so impressed by the way they're, it's like you're hanging on to you're watching the series. You're like, I got to know what happens to Kim. That's like the big thrust. It's like, what happens to this character? And where is her conscience? And when does her conscience speak up? And is she just as bad as Jimmy, or is she just as bad but different? You're asking all these questions. And so it was one of the most important character to pay off in the whole thing. And our friend Dan had said something last time. He said like, I have no idea what's going to happen in the show. And I also don't know what I want to have happen.
Yeah.
And yet they figured it out.
And I think they play with that too, because you almost want him to come up with another scheme to get out of it. And you want him to come up with another scheme. And he has that ability to do so. Like, he could get himself down to 7 years. He can do it. It's like he's just that, like he can just turn it on, and that's his superpower.
And it was plausible. It was like, they were taking us for that ride. We're like, he's actually gonna, like, you can see how, if you had a criminal who's like, well, I wasn't present for the meth making, I didn't kill anybody. As far as the federal agents who died, I didn't know that was going to happen.
And it's also like really realistic to be like, well, we have this mayhem and destruction in Albuquerque, and we need somebody to blame. Yeah. Like, we need the legal system to blame this guy, and at least to put him away, because somebody has to go.
Like, he's going to get at that point, nobody went to jail for anything that happened. And so he's going to get prosecuted as if he's Walter White himself. Yeah.
And and you made the analogy of Ghislaine Maxwell to Jeffrey Epstein. It's like, that trial was basically Jeffrey Epstein's trial.
Right. So. But yeah, so Carol, I thought that she brought something so uniquely empathetic. I mean, I don't think I ever thought that Jimmy would strangle her with an Ethernet cord. You're right there on camera.
It really doesn't seem his style, but like, I don't know. Yeah, we don't know how backed into a corner he felt,
But man, I mean, you could show me any elderly actress and I wouldn't want her to get strangled by an Ethernet cord. But there's something about her eyes. There's something about the quiver in her voice. In particular, like, do you remember the part where he goes like, Marion, what's that? And she goes, you tell me. And she just sounds so betrayed when she says that. You tell me. like, I'm an old woman who can barely walk. I have a son who's troubled, and you came into my house. I fed you. I treated you like a friend, and I trusted you. You tell me what's on that laptop. Yeah, it's painful stuff.
Yeah, and it's, I think, masterful. And yeah, like I said before, it's like it's such a flex that they can just become a black and white show in the last few episodes, and it's wonderful. It's masterful. It's beautiful. Every frame of painting, it works. And yeah, and the ending for Jimmy works too. I mean, like, in the end, he, like, the crime he regrets the most is what he did to his brother. And
what a great moment to, he's like, that's not, and also the motif of the legal system. This whole show has been about the legal system, and it's been about, what can I get you off on? The whole thing has been about, what can I get you off on? And and having the lawyer there, the perfectly ethical lawyer, just be like, that's not a crime. And it was so quick too. It was just, Jimmy had to say it out loud. He goes, yeah, it was. What I did to my brother was a crime, And because we also got this flashback with Chuck, we're reminded that, like, Chuck was a prick. But what you did to him was a crime.
Yeah. And then, like, the obviously the time machine motif and all the flashbacks, where he's kind of probing his own regret. And it's very interesting, and it's the different answers with, like, Mike and Walt. Like, Walt, what a
genius move, because we have such rich characters. What are we going to do? How are we going to pay these guys off? What's the final thing we're going to say about these guys? It's like, well, ask them what they would do differently, and we'll learn a lot more. We'll learn as much as we could know about them, which is a good philosophical question of, like, is that a great way to measure any person? Is, like, tell me what you would do differently. Mike's, of course, is the most profound, where at first he goes, I would stop my son from dying, because when his son dies, it's as though he dies. I think that's like, again, Walter White is empowered by tragedy. He's like, ooh, this is like a go crazy card. And Mike is like, he's just kind of a ghost after that. He's just kind of and Jimmy is, I think it's somewhat similar, where they both kind of escape into these personas, and they become it's all a big cope. Whereas Walt is like, he sprouts from it.
Yeah.
But I love that he's like, I would make sure, I would save my son from dying. And he almost immediately goes, no. I wouldn't have walked on this path in the first. I don't want to be on this path. Right,
I wouldn't have done the first domino, that set it all.
Holy fuck. How sad is that?
Yeah.
And like the dominoes are still falling as we speak, and they're going to continue to fall. And I would go back to the first domino.
Yeah.
And Walt, of course, I think Nina, I was watching it with Nina, and I think she like exclaimed, she was pissed. But he's like, my regret is I wish I hadn't fucked up that company, or I wish I hadn't gotten bought out of that company. She's like, he's still talking about this gray matter thing.
It's like, he killed a kid.
I would have gone back. Yeah.
Or tried to kill Brock, at least.
So I was thinking, I was like, Walt would totally have killed that old woman. He would have been like, Jesse, we had to kill her. Think about all the people depending on us, Jesse. She was going to stop it, but we don't kill anybody from here on out. Okay. Got it. That one was necessary.
That one, it's what's another cracked egg?
And all of these characters, well, actually, like, so, Nacho pays a big price, obviously, but he also is able to end things on his terms. Just about everybody. Well, Mike doesn't get to end things on his terms at all. Mike is completely robbed by Walt in Breaking Bad.
Yeah. That where else? I feel like it, with the Mike death in Breaking Bad, I feel like it was fine. Like,
I have no complaints. It's just, it is weird. It's like, man, this hyper competent guy just got sucker shot.
Yeah, well,
it can happen.
It's like he both knew what Walt was capable, and he also underestimated him in some way. So it's
but everybody either dies an early death or they get away with it. Even Jesse, who was tortured. So you could say, okay, he served his prison sentence, but Jesse is a murderer, and he gets to go live in Alaska for free. And so, yeah, to act, I kind of knew that in advance. I was like, he has to go to jail because they need one guy who pays the piper the right way. And then to be like, no, he's not just going to pay the piper. He's going to decide what his own sentence ought to be.
Yeah.
He's going to sentence himself, basically.
And just like the little details after he's in jail, like the way he like moves, he like feels a little more free. Like, you know, when he's as Gene, he feels like he looks like he's in prison. He looks like he's imprisoned by who he was, where his situation is, how he's going to get out of this one. And then once he stops running and kind of goes into that contrition mode and goes, you know, punishes himself, he looks free. He looks like a free person, even though he's in jail. It
speaks to such a human idea. How about when they cut out to when he brings up Chuck in the courtroom and it cuts out to the exit sign and the buzz, the little electrical buzz.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, cause remember Chuck complaining about the low voltage signage and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there, you know, it almost is kind of like I love that little, they have these little shortcut visual ideas and audio ideas for everybody, like Hector with his dinging bell and, you know, so many good little things like that. So what else there's a couple other quick things. Yeah. It had to be a courtroom that ended in. We knew that. We knew like there's got to be some kind of legal battle here because that's what this is about. Yeah. You mentioned, you were like, this Bryan Cranston is just a show of force as this character.
Yeah, just like when he gets back into that character, he like steals, like it like took my breath away. So, especially some of the things he said, like it's like, oh, so you've always been like this or whatever, you know, like just the way he like cut to it and like, oh, it's just like the command of the character and his voice is so good.
And they caught him at that's an especially manic part of Walt's life.
Yeah.
That's like when he's headed to New Hampshire and he's like, we're going to save the rest of the money too. He's like still under a terrible he just kidnapped his own child and then like dropped her off at the fire station. He's like completely out of control at that point. I love that they still have him like obsessing over, you know, like home repair stuff in the cell. Like I got to control everything.
Yeah.
He makes Jimmy look pretty sane.
Yeah, I know. it's true. It's like, oh, okay, well, maybe it's not that bad that I sympathize with Jimmy this much. But
you remember Jesse in Breaking Bad being like, "You can't keep getting away with it." Like he's like crying out to God that like I can't continue with offense after offense where nobody has to pay, where nobody has to answer for what they did. Where Walt he's too smart. He's always escaping, and yeah, Jimmy's like that too. And Jimmy has I can't keep getting away with it moment. It's pretty damn smart. The thing that this show is, and both of these shows always did, was they always do the thing that makes perfect sense, and it always surprises you.
Yeah.
I guess that's just like, that's what a strong character that you're thinking carefully about. That's where they'll lead you, you know?
Yeah. And the relationship with Kim, the final moment, like in the lawyer room there where they share the cigarettes. It's just, everything's so.
Kim is tough because she can be a very well performed, very well written character where the series ends and you're like, so why Kim? Like, what was ultimately what was the story significance of Kim? Like just a love interest? Like what was, and they, you know, to make it like, well, Kim figured out long before he did that, you can't keep getting away with it. You know? And so when I love that, like she inspired him when he finds out, like, oh my God, she went to Cheryl and just paid the piper, and she's open up to the civil suit. She might have everything. She might be ruined, but she just can't continue like this. And that's when he's like, all right. And I love that because he's this con man. I love that he conned her to come so that he could bare his soul, you know, in front of her. That's so cool.
Yeah, no, it's
well, what was that music throughout the last, you know, that kind of, I guess that's kind of like all these black and white episodes have that kind of like eclectic, like keyboard music that almost would be corny, but kind of fits really, really well.
Yeah. I don't know.
All these bold choices that are,
they all just fit together so well for me. So
So that's the thing. Now they've got to release a gigantic, like an RV with the inflatable Statue of Liberty on top of it. DVD, 4K, Blu-ray, watch them all. There's that, the guy who edited Breaking Bad into one movie. Now let's see if they could do it for Better Call Saul.
That would be painful. I mean, that show is meant to be a hang, it's meant to be
for
kind
sure.
of a slow burn.
But so much so you wonder, you're like, could you cut to the chase a little bit faster? Could you kind of could you kill Chuck in the middle of it and then but Breaking Bad, I was thinking about like how it's so cool that the 99% of Better Call Saul, you really don't need Breaking Bad to love it. Like, yeah, you could start it totally fresh as long as you're a little bit patient, because you might be asking yourself like, why am I following this character? What's the significance here? But if you could be a little bit patient, you would love it. And then when we get to these final episodes, it turns into a finale of both shows, and it would be incoherent basically if you didn't. I was thinking, like, imagine if instead of making a Saul prequel show, they decided to make a Saul Netflix movie like they did with Jesse, and they just showed the events after the fact. It would be completely different because you wouldn't, it wouldn't be informed by all of this backstory.
Yeah, you wouldn't have Kim, you wouldn't have Chuck, you wouldn't have anything. It
was deeply informed by the backstory, ultimately. And in that way, it's like it was a great finale to the Breaking Bad saga, but much more so it was a finale to Better Call Saul. It was the things that happened to Better Call Saul is what informed that finale.
Yeah, I like when he brings up Howard. He's like, I don't even want to like bring this up. He's like, you could like his regret about it.
He pushed that thing way down.
Yeah,
and even Mike's got a couple of these really sad moments in the series where, because you think of him as this elder statesman, this very mature guy. He's very competent. He's got a lot of good advice. But yeah, he's also the guy who tells Kim and Jimmy, like, just turn the light switch off. Just don't care, and you'll be good as long as you kind of compartmentalize. And
it's just like, one drug addict telling another how to do drugs real good.
He'll get over it. Or when he goes to Nacho's dad and he's like, hey, we're the same, you and me. I lost a son, but revenge will be coming. And the guy's just like, you are not at peace, my friend.
Yeah. It's like, you got to break the cycle.
Vince Gilligan was like, he kind of, that was a scene where Nacho's dad made Mike almost kind of look sad. You don't see that every day.
Now what's Vince gonna do? He's gonna make some terrible show next.
Retire. It's over. Retire. You mean how many hours now? So it's like 60 episodes, both shows. So call it like 120 hours plus a movie. Like, that's
call it a day. Put a bow on it.
How much entertainment can one person make in a lifetime? And it's all so good. It's all so perfect. Just go to the beach now. My God. Or be like George Lucas and act like you're going to make experimental art films, but don't actually do it.
Yeah. Like Tarantino's just like enjoying, like, I don't know, being a dad and stuff. So.
Tarantino's right. He catches a lot of shit for like talking about retiring early. I'm like, well, you got to retire someday.
Yeah.
It doesn't just all, not everybody's Scorsese. You direct until your very last, dying breaths. I was thinking about that with the story for this, where I was like, you kind of mourn each like that's the final scene with that character, that's the final scene with that character, but it's you're so hopeful that they leave each character in a good place or in a satisfying spot. And I was just thinking, like, a couple of characters, like, well, you got to end them sometime. So where are you gonna kind of have to give up on, like, hey, Nacho, we're gonna have to kill Nacho at the beginning of this season.
What tragedy it would be if Bob Odenkirk died of his heart attack.
Oh my God. And they were saying that in an interview. They were like, I guess we just wouldn't have finished the show.
that's like, that would be the worst thing probably to ever happen. It's just like,
pretty much, yeah.
It'd be a tragedy.
It would be really, really a huge bummer. I'm glad he made it. And I'm glad that they bet on Bob Odenkirk. It's a weird choice. He obviously is very good, but it was a weird choice. It was all, I remember people really spoke ill of, like, don't do a Saul Goodman prequel. Like, what the fuck is that even? How are you going to make him into a protagonist? Or is this going to be a comedy and clash with Breaking Bad? It's like, nah. And it's all because they asked themselves, why would someone become Saul Goodman? That was the initial question. Well, how does somebody become Saul? Because you're not born Saul Goodman. So how do you become Saul Goodman? And they started from there.
They did the work. And they made you feel
writers. They're just careful thinkers, and they want their show to mean something. They want you to watch it and not feel like, oh, that was like a okay time to waste a little life with.
But wasn't there like a donkey video that was only like 4 seconds? It was just like, here's a review. It's like, oh, you better watch this or something.
Yeah, that summed it up. I'm glad when I hear other people be like, this is spellbinding. This is good. Because I'll still run into people who are like, oh yeah, Better Call Saul. I watched like the first one. I thought it was kind of gay. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
All right, so that's that. I'm with Dunk. You gotta go watch this show.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.